Most cities mourn when they tear down a historic building. Las Vegas throws a party. That explosion you are watching destroyed the last mob-built casino on the Strip. The Tropicana, 67 years of history, gone in 22 seconds. And the crowd cheered. They set off fireworks. They treated demolition like a celebration. But here is what that crowd did not realize. The Tropicana was not demolished because it was old. Plenty of buildings older than 67 years are still standing in every other American city. It was demolished because staying would have been off-brand. Vegas does not preserve history. It cannot. Because Las Vegas was never designed to be a real city. It was designed to be replaced. And once you understand why, you will never look at it the same way again. If you are new here, I make videos about why places feel the way they do. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. The lie everyone believes about Vegas. To understand why Vegas requires destruction, you have to understand how it was built. Most people get this origin story completely wrong. The common belief goes something like this. Bugsy Siegel and the Mobby invented Las Vegas through criminal genius. Gangsters with vision building an empire in the desert through sheer ambition and ruthlessness. The reality is far less romantic. The mob did not build Vegas out of vision. They built it because no one else would. Banks refused to finance casinos. They considered gambling morally toxic and legally radioactive. Organized crime stepped in, not out of ambition, but because legitimate finance had abandoned the space entirely. When Siegel opened the Flamingo on December 26, 1946, it lost $300,000 in its first week. It was a catastrophic failure by any measure, but that failure contained a blueprint that would shape everything Las Vegas became. The Flamingo cost $6 million, 17 times more than any previous casino. Siegel understood something the banks did not. Authenticity was never the product. Scale was the product. Build a fantasy expensive enough and people will pay to visit it. It does not matter whether it makes sense. It does not matter whether it belongs in a desert. It does not matter whether it can last. That original bet, fantasy over reality, created a cycle Las Vegas has repeated 4 times, and each cycle required destroying everything that came before. How Vegas learned to eat itself. Siegel's logic became Vegas's operating system. Scale beat authenticity. But to keep scaling, the city had to keep destroying. Architectural scholars call this process symbolic destruction. Each new era does not just replace the previous one, it renders it obsolete. Vegas has done this 4 times, each more dramatic than the last. The first boom came in the 1940s and the 1950s. Casinos competed through towering neon signs that turned the desert night into perpetual daylight. The Flamingo's 80-foot tower featured champagne bubbles rising to a rotating top with 6-foot letters. The Golden Nugget pioneered the building as a sign. The entire facade became neon. This was the Rat Pack era, Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra, sophisticated hedonism wrapped in electric light. Then came the corporate takeover in the 1960s and the 1970s. Howard Hughes bought $300 million in mob-connected casinos. But here is the twist. The same employees stayed on, and the same skimming operations continued. The masters changed. The fakeness did not. The third boom hit in the 1980s and 1990s, and this is where Vegas stopped pretending to be subtle. The Luxor became a 110-story Egyptian pyramid, complete with a replica of King Tut's tomb. Paris, Las Vegas built a half-scale Eiffel Tower, 540 feet compared to the original's 1,083. The Venetian installed motorized gondolas with gondoliers singing O Sole Mio, a Neapolitan song not Venetian. But nobody cared. Authenticity was now explicitly irrelevant. Only spectacle mattered. The fourth boom brought Starchitecture, with Frank Gehry, Daniel Libeskind, and other famous architects hired to launder tackiness with artistic legitimacy. But the underlying logic remained identical to Siegel's Flamingo. Build bigger, build flashier, and when it stops being the biggest and flashiest, tear it down. The Dunes lasted 38 years before becoming the Bellagio. The Sands lasted 44 years before becoming the Venetian. The Stardust lasted 49 years before becoming Resorts World. The Dunes implosion in 1993 started what observers called the implosion craze. Vegas discovered that destruction itself could be entertainment. They did not just demolish casinos, they made spectacles of the demolitions. But there is a reason Vegas cannot afford to let anything last, and it has nothing to do with architecture. The desert's revenge. The demolition cycle isn't just architectural philosophy, it's survival instinct. Las Vegas is running out of the one thing a desert city cannot manufacture: water. Las Vegas exists in the Mojave Desert. It receives fewer than 5 inches of rainfall annually, and yet it advertises itself as an oasis of water features and green lawns. Consider the Bellagio alone. Its man-made lake holds 22 million gallons. The fountains shoot water over 100 feet into the air. The lake loses 12 million gallons annually to evaporation, enough to fill 600 residential swimming pools, just disappearing into desert air. Las Vegas uses 30% more water per capita than Los Angeles, a city 300 miles away in a slightly less arid region. Here is the cruel historical irony. Las Vegas was built on natural springs. The name literally means the meadows in Spanish. Those springs stopped flowing in 1962 due to aquifer depletion. Since 1907, groundwater has dropped by 187,000 acre-feet, enough to supply 10,000 households for 20 years. The crisis keeps deepening. Lake Mead hit historic lows. The Colorado River allocation is contested by multiple states, all fighting for shrinking resources. In 2015, the Southern Nevada Water Authority had to construct new intake pipes 200 feet lower because the water level had dropped so dramatically. Researchers warned the city could face water scarcity as early as 2021. Every fountain, every casino pool, every artificial lawn represents a deliberate rejection of environmental reality. Vegas manufactures an artificial paradise precisely where nature forbids it. This is not an accident. It is architectural philosophy made literal. The city bet its future on the assumption that technology would always outrun geography. But the fakeness is not just environmental. It is psychological, and that is entirely by design. The architecture of forgetting. If the environment is artificial and the buildings are disposable, what does that do to the people inside them? One visitor said Las Vegas is like Vietnam. You cannot possibly go into Vegas as yourself and come out the same person. Another visitor said they honestly believe the first thing you pack when you leave for Vegas is a different personality. This is not exaggeration. Researchers describe Vegas as inducing a perpetual state of suspended animation from a psychological standpoint. The city functions as a space where normal social rules are deliberately suspended, and the architecture enforces that suspension. Casino design is meticulously engineered for disorientation. There are no clocks visible anywhere. There are no windows to track the time of day. Oxygen is pumped through ventilation systems to keep you alert. Carpets are designed to be deliberately ugly so you look up at slot machines instead of down at the floor. Maze-like layouts disorient and trap. The Sphere opened in 2023, and it takes this even further. Visitors are deliberately kept in lobby, holding areas for an hour before scheduled showtimes, surrounded by robots and holograms. One architectural critic described the experience as feeling slightly like a New Age crematorium. Compare this to Orlando, which lost its identity to theme parks by accident. Infrastructure was built around Disney at the expense of the actual city. Residents woke up one day and realized their city had no soul. Vegas is different. Vegas deliberately erases identity as a feature. The psychological manipulation is not commercial spillover, it is architectural intent. But the Sphere represents something Vegas has never done before. It might have broken the formula entirely. When spectacle stopped pretending. The Sphere is different from everything Vegas has ever built, and that difference is devastating. The old Vegas model relied on dishonest fakeness. The half-scale Eiffel Tower tries to convince you you are in Paris. The Venetian gondolas try to convince you you are in Venice. The Luxor Pyramid tries to transport you to ancient Egypt. They are replicas pretending to be something they are not. The Sphere does not pretend anything. It is 516 feet wide, 336 feet tall, and covered in 1.2 million exterior LEDs. No narrative, no theme, no geographical claim. It does not pretend to be anywhere. It is just a sphere, pure geometric spectacle with zero pretense. One critic captured it perfectly. In one blow, it lays bare the silliness of Vegas's fake places. It reminds us that no matter how much money you spend, all the fake Eiffel Towers in the world will not have the charm of a single cobblestone in the Marais. The Sphere is honest about being fake. That radical honesty exposes what the Eiffel Tower and the Venetian were always hiding. Vegas is not a place, it is a consumption engine. The Sphere just stopped pretending otherwise, and that engine was so profitable it became a global export. Nevada generates approximately $58 billion annually in tourism revenue, with Las Vegas at the center of that economy. During the 1960s through the 1980s, when other American cities struggled with industrial decline, Vegas grew exponentially by catering to fantasies rather than serving local needs. Now look at Dubai's themed mega developments, Macau's casino corridor, Shanghai's entertainment districts. All consciously replicated the Las Vegas formula. Vegas did not just build fake attractions, it proved that fakeness itself could be exported. The city's real product is not entertainment. It is the demonstration that authenticity is optional if the spectacle is big enough. The atomic inheritance. Vegas's philosophy of replacing reality with spectacle did not start with casinos. It started with nuclear weapons. The Nevada test site sits 65 miles from the Strip. In the 1950s, you could watch mushroom clouds from casino rooftops. While most Americans built bomb shelters and practiced duck and cover drills, Vegas did the opposite. It turned atomic anxiety into aesthetic fuel. Look closely at vintage Vegas design and you will see it everywhere. Starburst patterns on neon signs are direct visual references to nuclear explosions. Orbit rings and boomerang shapes are nods to atomic particles and rocket ships. The Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas sign has a crown explicitly styled as an atomic-era totem. Hotels hosted atomic parties where tourists watched tests from the rooftop with cocktails in hand. Where other cities sought shelter from nuclear dread, Vegas glamorized it. This inversion, making spectacle from catastrophe, captures the city's founding philosophy. The water waste, the perpetual destruction, the psychological manipulation, all follow the same logic established in the atomic era. Transform reality, even terrifying reality, into entertainment. Vegas learned in the 1950s that there is no reality so threatening it cannot be turned into a show. The question Vegas can't answer. 3 questions still haunt this city. First, is authenticity even possible anymore? Vegas foresaw postmodern theory by 60 years. It understood that in a consumer society, the image is the thing. When the Sphere, pure spectacle with no pretense, draws massive crowds, are they experiencing Vegas more truly than visitors to the fake Venice? Second, was the mob essential or just convenient? Without organized crime financing, would Vegas have developed differently? Or was fakeness inevitable the moment gambling was legalized and developers saw profitable potential in desert swampland? Third, and most urgent, can simulation survive scarcity? Lake Mead keeps dropping. The Colorado River keeps depleting. The fantasy required abundant water, abundant electricity from Hoover Dam, abundant cash from visitors. What happens when one of those inputs disappears? Vegas did not become fake by accident. From Bugsy Siegel's $6 million gamble on the Flamingo, to the atomic-era neon signs, to the Disneyfication of the Strip, to the Sphere's radical honesty, every decision was deliberate. The demolition cycle is a feature, not a bug. The water waste is intentional rejection of environmental reality. The psychological manipulation is architectural, not accidental. Orlando lost its soul because it never realized what was happening. Vegas always knew exactly what it was doing. It just did not care. 67 years of history, gone in 22 seconds. And they celebrated. Because in Las Vegas, destruction is not tragedy, it is on brand. The question is not whether Vegas feels fake, it always has been. The question is whether fake can last forever or whether the desert will eventually have the final word.